Hi, Aquarius, Sun and Rising. Welcome to your October 2022 Astro Update. It's Rena here. And so we do have some important developments in October. We have a few planets that are turning direct, and that's always nice. And I'm trying to, how many planets? I think at least two. No, three. And another thing that is important is that we have the eclipse season kicking off for the fall version, if you live in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's going to be in Scorpio. Now, I'm recording this in the third week of September. And for some people, the eclipse energy may be felt before the actual date. And for others, it might be felt after the date. But, of course, I'm going to give the exact date of the eclipse. Just keep in mind that the time period that the eclipse could be felt can be less connected to a certain date, just in the general vicinity. So on the 2nd of October, Mercury turns direct. Yay! Now, Mercury has transited through two signs during its retrograde motion. It started out in Libra, and for you, this is the ninth house, and that was a friendly angle. It formed a trine when it was in Libra. And that the ninth house for you, that might have had something to do with higher education, especially with Mercury, or languages, foreign languages, and long distance travel, and maybe even combining those things. The person who is either a traveling professor or the person who is a student who is studying abroad for a semester. That could have been something that you were planning, and then something went awry. Perhaps you didn't have an updated passport or whatever, and or the money didn't come through that you wanted to be able to do this. So Mercury went back into Virgo, and now it's direct in that 8th house. And the 8th house can be about loans, other people's money. So if you get funding for this kind of thing. Oh, and another thing too is if you were studying any kind of spiritual practice or yoga teaching, things of that nature, that might have been something that you couldn't pursue straight on at the time that you want to. But remember that now that Mercury has turned direct, it's going to also go back into Libra at some point. And it's going to be during this month, by the way. For some of you, what may have come up is the theme or the debate in your mind about organized religion versus metaphysics. Because the 8th house is more of the occult, or you could say metaphysics, and the 9th house could be more organized systems of thought. And the reason why this kind of thing might come up in particular is if you want to do something professionally with this and you're not sure what you want to promote. If you want to promote something that's more open-ended, or if you want to, like for instance, when a yoga teacher teaches yogic philosophy, and not just teaching different asanas or, those positions in yoga, but actually talking about the philosophy too, that would be more of the 9th house. But that esoteric, kind of more secret information is associated with the 8th house. And for some Aquarians, that might be more up your alley, shamanism, mystery schools, things like that. So on the 8th, Pluto turns direct at 26 degrees of Capricorn, and that's in your 12th house. Now, wow, Pluto in the 12th is heavy duty. But as you probably know, the the planet Pluto is an outer planet, a generational planet. So we don't pay it much mind when it comes to our basic, core personality traits, but we certainly see where it falls in our chart, and we also see where it's transiting at the moment. And of course, because it is a generational planet, it's going to be hanging out in one house for many years. So Pluto went into Capricorn in January of 2008, and this was in the United States. This was a time when we had an economic collapse. And this is very much in alignment with what Pluto represents and what Capricorn represents, the structures of our society being transformed. And sometimes it's not too pretty. But for you, where this is particularly affecting you and may be for years, you have to see where it falls in your natal chart, or if you're, listening for your sun sign, your solar chart. But in the 12th house, where it has been transiting, this can be even karmic or ancestral karma. I think ancestral karma is particularly associated with the 4th house, but I might have seen it with the 12th as well. But in any case, karma in general. And Pluto can really maybe help you to extinguish karma, but by the same token, it can bring up memories that have been buried. The 12th house to me is more associated with unconscious memories. The 8th house, which Pluto rules, along with Mars in the sign of Scorpio, is more associated with subconscious memories. But you do see astrologers say that the 12th house is subconscious memories too. The reason I say unconscious memories is because karma, past lives, these are the buzzwords or keywords of the 12th house. This leads to spiritual amnesia, where we don't remember past lives altogether. Maybe we might have a few hits of recognition and we suspect we have certain lives, but most people do not have that kind of recall. Some people do, but many people don't. So sometimes people may have phobias related to past lives that are irrational because there's nothing in this lifetime to make them afraid of water, to make them, to make them afraid of whatever certain loud noises. And so when a person is delving into these things, they can heal a lot because they're pinpointing where this is coming from. And one way that people do that is through past life regression. I'm not, encouraging people to do that, because that's something that you have to really take into consideration if you want to dredge up these suppressed memories, if you want to call them that. Personally, I have zero interest in my past lives from that perspective. I like speculating on my past lives, but I don't necessarily want to relive any past lives. And that's kind of what happens when you get regressed. But supposedly, it has a very healing effect, and you can relive trauma and then transcend it. So with Pluto in the 12th, some people may actually go that route. I would also say some people may do plant medicines like ayahuasca, which also causes them to relive traumatic events even from this lifetime. Again, that's something that you really should research very deeply so that you know what you're getting yourself into, and also to have that kind of after care. where you're not just being left to your own devices, but you're integrating the experiences that you've had so that you actually can benefit from them, and you're not left hanging. You're not left, okay, now what? Now what do I do with this information? Because that's what sometimes happens, is that the person does have dramatic experiences, but it's hard to integrate them. But anyway, that's not for the faint of heart, but some people are very fearless about these kinds of things, or they're very committed to wanting to heal from them. And I have to give people credit for having that desire, because it takes a lot of guts. It's easier just to stick your head in the sand. But anyway, there might be something else that, because when Pluto has been retrograding, rather than looking to the outer world, you're looking to yourself. 12th house can be self-defeating patterns. So certainly that might have been something that you inadvertently were working on through dealing with maybe an experience that came up for you around this issue. But now Pluto is direct, and the experiences that you have may involve the outer world, not just your inner self. So that you might feel that it's not as demanding on you personally as it was. It always will be to some level when you have these transits in the water houses, because it is connected to the emotions. So it's not to say that it's, totally not asking anything of you on that level. It will be, but you may find a bit of relief from the intensity of what you've been through. On the very next day, on the 9th, we have a full moon at 16 degrees of Aries, a friendly angle to Aquarius sun and rising. That's a sextile, and that's ahead of you. So that's going to be in the 3rd house, which is the house of the mind. So you may have a spiritual download that really encapsulates what has been true for you in maybe recent months. Like you have a revelation. 3rd house can be trainings, I believe, like in terms of shorter term, not involving college or university. And you might be finishing one in some cases. This can also be like if you have a teaching job that it is coming to a close, or also a writing project. But the 3rd house in terms of people are siblings, as well as aunts, uncles, cousins, so extended family members. Sometimes this could indicate that you see that person in a different light, and maybe you don't like what you see, and you realize that person has always had it in for you. Now, on the flip side, if you have always had an issue with a sibling, you may see them in a different light, and you have more compassion for them. So, anything is possible with that kind of a transit. On the 10th, Mercury goes back into Libra, so back into that 9th house, and that can, rectify anything to do with travel plans and educational pursuits that perhaps were kind of curtailed briefly. Now everything might be getting back into action. On the 23rd, we have a lot going on here. Both Venus and the Sun are going into Scorpio. So Scorpio is a fixed sign like you, Aquarius. Therefore, it's one of the angular houses. In this case, the 10th house of career, very important, as all angular houses are. But of course, the career is something that a lot of people are interested in. So this is a solar eclipse that's going to be here a couple days after the Sun enters this house, and you have Venus there as well. So the solar eclipse is on the 25th, and that's at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So that can certainly lead to you being feeling like there's some kind of new beginning as it pertains to career matters. Maybe, I don't know if this has anything to do with travel. And that's why all that energy was in that ninth house. But, if you decide, yes, I am going to take that job overseas, that can open up your world quite a bit. So it's not just about opening up your career possibilities, it's opening up your world as a whole. And Venus in this 10th house can be very favorable for people in positions of authority to want to help you. You may have this situation where you're even making more money. Venus can be about that. And Saturn turns direct on the same day. Again, this is on the 23rd, and Saturn is in your sign, so I forgot to mention that. So that's another planet that's turning direct. Now, it's possible that you have been very tough on yourself for some reason, because you have, Pluto in the 12th house, and then you have Saturn in your sign. So it's coming at you from all angles. And, what that can mean is that now that Saturn is direct, you're not internalizing a lot of those things that maybe you were thinking about, all the things that the self-limiting beliefs, tapes, behaviors that keep you from fully grabbing the brass ring, as they call it. And again, with the self-defeating patterns that the 12th house specializes in, this can be a very powerful time where you're able to take inspired action when it comes to these issues. On the 28th, Jupiter goes back into Pisces. It was in Aries, so it was in that third house. So that's an area that is favorable to you as well. But, that's where you had that full moon. But now you have Pisces in the second house, and that can be very good. Jupiter, even retrograding, if it's in this house of money, that might be something that you're doing well with, and you're getting another opportunity to make money in a certain way. So, I can't guarantee that all these things will play out the way that I say it, but if something comes back into your reality that has to do with a money-making opportunity for you, and you are, don't just turn your nose up to, at least see what's going on, because maybe you were distracted with something else before, and you have a second chance to go for something, and that could be very lucky for you. On the 29th, Mercury goes into Scorpio, so Mercury is going into that career sector. You might be talking with people in positions of authority for some reason. Perhaps you're, I was going to say auditioning, but I mean interviewing for something career-wise, or you simply are negotiating with higher-ups. On the 30th, Mars goes retrograde at 25 degrees of Gemini. So here we have this long-range 7-month transit in Gemini for you. This is your 5th house of love and creativity. So Mars is now turning inwards. You may, when Mars is in the 5th, as it pertains to love, it could be some shorter affairs. if someone is coupled and they have Mars in the 5th house and they have this temptation to stray, this could show them this could be a time when you're not doing that, when you're avoiding those kinds of that kind of behavior, trying to rein it in and maybe sublimate that sexual desire, because the 5th house can be recreational sex. And if somebody, and that could be the same even if you are single too. And Mars is a sex drive. So this is a lot of times when people are yogis and things like that, they will, it's kind of like almost a form of alchemy where they're taking something that they might see as a carnal desire and turning it into something higher. And it's not to say, or maybe channeling it into artistic inspiration or even physical training. Like if you're training for boxing, the 5th house can be sports. And when Mars is in the 5th, you may desire martial arts or some form of competitive sport. Mars is very active and competitive. But it's like, for some reason, you're kind of going within as it pertains to this, rather than really putting yourself out there. And, I don't know why that would be. Maybe there's just like a season when you're it's more of the internal discipline rather than the physical discipline. But yeah, so Mars will turn direct in January 12th, and then come out of its shadow in March. So it really has a long transit in this 5th house. But anyway, that should be very interesting. And it forms a trine with you. So, even though Mars can be kind of a bit much, or you could say a loose cannon, if you will, it can also be an energizing influence. So for somebody who is artistic, for instance, this can be a very prolific period for you. All right, that's what I have for you, Aquarius. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.